Everybody comes from someplace. I'm here, I come from Arnold, and I want that preserved.
People would want to know that they are living in an area that was traversed by the pioneers. It's not something that just happened. A lot of the immigrants came into this area. They were Germans and they were French. And some came from the city of St. Louis, the Carondelet area, the south side, and some moved up from New Orleans, Cape Girardeau, New Madrid, into the Arnold area, and they were farmers, basically. And the Merrimack River and the Mississippi River, of course, was their mode of transportation until the railroads were built, and those railroads ran parallel to the Mississippi River, which made frequent stops in the area of Arnold. The city of Arnold was built around 6 towns, and they were just place names at the time. Ten Brook, just a namesake. It was a train station, not a train station, and a stopover.
The Ten Brook area was more or less a place that people from the city of St. Louis would come to during summer vacations for rest and relaxation.
Wicks is another area. At the end of Wicks Road, which comes to down to the Mississippi River, the train would stop there and pick up the quarried stone that was then used to make tombstones, and it would be hauled into St. Louis.
Flam City was named after 2 gentlemen by the name of John Flam and Fred Flam. The name itself was given by Leo Ziegler, who started the grocery store on the banks of the Merrimack River on Telegraph Road.
Maxville was the big metropolis at that time.
The city of Maxville was named after Max Stengel, who had a store in the area.
In Maxville, that was really the hub of a lot of for groceries, because as a boy, my parents would maybe send me up there to get a loaf of bread or whatever. I'd ride on my bicycle and I'd go up, and the only thing I had to be concerned about was the dogs, running out, and so it was just kind of you also get your hair cut there in Maxville with Chris Becker's barbershop, for like 50 cents,
Beck was formed, what was named after a man by the name of Emanuel Beck, and he had a grocery store in that particular area. Ten Brook at one time had a hotel which was called the Cedar Crest Hotel, and this was another institution that was used a lot by the more affluent people in the city of St. Louis when they would come out to visit the area in the summertime.
I can remember, and we're going back in 1930 when the highway, people on the weekends would go out and make little trips out of Arnold, and they would come in, out of St. Louis rather, and they would come in on Sunday nights that the tires wouldn't last too good, and you could see them driving their Model A Fords down the road with sparks. They'd be running in, coming in on the rim, it was quite common to sit on your porch and see the city people trying to get back to the city, The
city was incorporated in 1972, and all the little individual towns took on the name of Arnold.
Arnold was a gentleman years ago who founded this area.
And I assume that the reason that Arnold was picked over all the others was the fact that Arnold had a post office.
Telegraph Road, of course, was connecting the southern part of St. Louis County into the southern part of the city of Arnold. And of course, General Grant used those roads for moving of troops during the Civil War days. In World War II, those same roads were used for soldiers to march from Jefferson Barracks south into the southern part of the city of Arnold for the training for rifles.
Well, that was down to Moss Hollow Rifle Range, which is south of Arnold, down on the old M Highway. That was, the soldiers would march from Jefferson Barracks down Old Telegraph Road, which ended up on Jeffco or Lee May Fair, 61, and that's where they ended up down the M Highway for their practice or campaign activities. My grandfather, it was a 100-acre tract that he had worked on, lived on it, and was passed on through the generations, which comprises a lot of Fox School campus. Well, it was strictly a farming area where I grew up on a truck farm, and Lima Ferry was an old 2-lane highway. And it was a farming area, and rural, that's your subsistence was from raising crops, and you lived from that. You know, there was no any activities, no factories or nothing. So there was fruit farms, grain, and truck farms. That was the livelihood of the people for their subsistence, was because all their crops they raised, more or less, they were transported to St. Louis for marketing. You know, I was attended to Seward School, which was a 2-room school. Parents had their PTA meetings, and there was graduation activities, picnics. You know, school picnics. You know, that were, let's say, important to you.
There were 5 one-room schoolhouses that were merged in 1948 to form the Fox School District. There were 2 main churches back in the 1800s, and that's the Immaculate Conception Catholic Church and the St. John Lutheran Church. And they were the mainstay of the population here. They had a Protestant and a Catholic church.
I think that the heritage that those churches put forth has a lot to do with the people that are in them. There are a number of families from those early days that are still members of that church, and the families continue to grow, and they will continue to grow in the future.
What I'm doing is a small version that will then be enlarged digitally, and then it will be applied to the wall. Arnold was formed from 5 towns, and I have each town represented in one little segment, and yet I'm keeping it all as flowing together as being one piece. To figure out what would go in the mural was kind of a long process for me. And my first thought when I was approached to do the mural was, oh, all the old buildings in Arnold, those would be fun to do. And of course I've done a lot of those, but then of course I realized there was a lot more to it besides that. I tried to get buildings that were important for some reason. They might be important for using the stone that was quarried here, or the style of house that was used at that time, showing, you know, progression through the years of how the buildings changed. One thing that I thought was really interesting was the Cedar Crest Country Club. People used to come out on the train from St. Louis, and this was a resort area. You know, it's near the Merrimack River, and it brought people out at that time. Then also, I didn't really realize how cut off this area was until they had bridges, and then the farmers could sell their goods to St. Louis. I just hope that when people look at this, they realize how much there was to the farming of Arnold. And also the quarry. I didn't know the quarrying was so important. A lot of the things that were quarried in the Arnold area were used to build important buildings in St. Louis. When people look at this and they say, oh, I remember Forest View Inn. Everybody talked about that. Oh, and did you know that all these small schools were here and they became this consolidated school district? That's important. I hope that when people look at the mural, they'll think, oh, I really like the way that's done, the detail, so that we can recognize that's where my grandpa lived. Oh, that's my grandpa and grandma's farm. And oh, remember that old house? My dad used to talk about it all the time. Things like that.
are just the southern border of St. Louis County, and by virtue of our real estate, people will come south both to live, and then as houses come, other commercial enterprises will come in order to provide jobs for those residents.
I think it'll be interesting to watch what happens over the next 20, 30, 40 years. If you go back and you look at the parts of this film, and they're showing gravel roads and paths where there's now highways. Can you imagine what then, if you can extrapolate from where we were to where we are now to where we're going to be, is amazing.
It's the character of the people in this community that define it. They have been, they are, and in the foreseeable future I see no change in the integrity that they possess. And that's what makes it so rewarding to be part of that community.
We have a lot of pride in our area. We have a lot of interest in our area, and I think that's where the pride comes from, is that there is a group of people that have an interest in pursuing future growth in Arnold. And as I usually end my commercials, I think it applies in this situation too. Arnold must be doing something right.